Hello, look at this wall. It is not very impressive, I know. Just a bunch of roughly piled stones. Nothing much, it seems. So, why would anyone call this work Cyclopean? Since the one-eyed giants are notorious for large, carefully fitted boulders. Well, because there is another and better meaning for that word, Cyclopean. That implies being part of a forgotten ancient culture, a group of people who shared a lot more than just a construction style, and who might be behind these very old and battered stones. However, it is never easy to define these folks, as it seems that building walls did not close the border, nor avoided population replacement. Today's wall is any one of dozens, maybe over 100, found all over the Adriatic coast, from Italy to Greece. These are listed as hill forts, a castle of sorts, despite being nothing more than a glimpse of an old circular wall atop a forgotten hill. Individually, it seems no one bothered to study, even less to preserve most of them. And collectively, it is not better, as I am not sure if anyone beside us has ever noticed how they form a chain down the coast. A bunch that is spread all over the Adriatic, but never really inland, as you will not find any of them more than 50 kilometers away from the sea. Each of these circular walls is rough and simple, built using a technique usually called dry stone, whereas the rocks are not cut to fit, but instead they are stacked in their natural shapes. Simple as this style is, it still requires practice to build up, generally associated with some local cultural trait. For example, UNESCO granted intangible heritage status to the Kerolithia works, which are a modern Greek usage of this technique. Most of these so-called hill forts have been abandoned for a long time, lacking any other remains inside the walls, leading lazy academics to have them dated to the 5th century BC and attributed to whoever the Romans found living in the neighborhood, that is, the Illyrians. These basic round walls or hill forts form a continuous chain down the Adriatic coast, as if they were protecting something, although not very successfully, since most of them had been abandoned even before the Romans showed up. A few sites kept being inhabited and evolved into proper cities, still inhabited today, leaving the walls unrecognizable beyond the slight round shape of the new town. Some others, such as the Roman town of Nesactium, now in Croatia, became quite prominent for a time, with the Romans obviously, and was abandoned shortly after they left, the Romans obviously. And more to the point is Monko Donja, also in Croatia, that for some reason became quite popular and much larger than all the others during the Bronze Age, being swiftly abandoned around 1500 BC, providing a proper clue to the true age of these sites. Going further south, a couple of places became monumental locations with beautiful fitted stones in elegant Cyclopean style. Take Ledze in Albania, with a massive acropolis accessible via a processional way, a grandiose path climbing up the mountain. Or the also mysterious Daorson in today's Bosnia, with its unique style of work combining tight-fitted joints with bulky facings and large blocks. For being so beautiful and for no other reason, these elaborate polygonal sites are said to have been also built by Illyrian folks, but now under Greek supervision and as late as the 3rd century BC. The Adriatic hill forts or circular walls got different names due to politics, I guess. To the south they are called gradina, meaning literally ruined enclosure, whilst to the north they are known as castellieri, from the Italian word for castle. This misnaming is a common offense elsewhere in the Cyclopean area, with the castle slur thrown at them walls so frequently. In the Alpes Maritime, the castellares are like the spitting image of the castellieri, except for the comical French accent. In Portugal they are called castros, again meaning castle, and also extending the name to the culture living on them. To the south in Greece, Paleocastro is a popular noun, but totally non-descriptive, with paleo just meaning old, and castro, yes, you get the idea. At first sight, most of these walls pass on as castles, but from a distance things get complicated. If we move up north in Europe, we will find many other hill forts of sorts, round enclosures atop a hill, built in prehistoric times, with a critical difference and a puzzling similarity. On the odd side, in northern Europe, hill forts are not made of stone, Cyclopean or not. Up there, the enclosures are made of earthworks and wooden palisades. Then it is on the similarity that things become interesting. Likewise, to the south, in the north, the hill fort naming seems off, because most of the enclosed locations lack water sources, housing, and other comforts needed for people on the defensive, leading many to think protecting the territory was never on the hill fort's job description. If you have already subscribed, you'll know this. And if you don't, there's an easy fix. Just click on the thingy below and be mind blown. I wish. It's like this. The Cyclopean builders, the people assembling puzzles of odd-shaped stones all over, were an old and lost culture. Or better said, a family of related cultures, recognizable by many quirky cultural traits, such as the language they spoke, their horny religion, or the hats they wear, amongst other stuff, worthy of YouTube videos. However, nothing sets the builders apart more than their particular style of masonry, being concentrated in delimited areas, bordering some jealous non-Cyclopean brutes stuck in the empty quarters. These are sad places, deprived of Cyclopean walls, bordering areas with plenty of awesome odd-shaped stones piled together, such as the Parallel 44, the most prominent of them all, featuring a line splitting all the Cyclopean walls in the south of Europe, from the boring rubble glued with mortar to the north. Or the Thracian Empty Quarter, a Cyclopean-less area stuck between southern Greece and Turkey. This region is totally square and yet is so close to the highest concentration both in quantity and quality of the mysterious stone puzzles. And there is also the South Italian triangle between Naples, Bari, and Foggia, that despite being surrounded by the best polygonal works of Italy, is hopelessly lacking them inside. And for a very strange reason, we are told. See, this South Italian empty quarter is said to be devoid of Cyclopean walls because it was inhabited by Illyrians. Yes, these are the same Illyrians as the ones found on the other side of the Adriatic Sea, where we have been looking at the hilltop walls and being told they were built by Illyrians. And it gets worse. If we continue moving east, inland in the Balkans, we would still get Illyrians living there. But the Cyclopean walls will soon disappear. Why? Only God knows why, that's why. The center part of the region with these circle walls is called the Balkans, which is home to an explosive patchwork of peoples and cultures who do not get along. The Balkans host the quintessential belligerent folks, so much so they invented a special word for their aggressive vibe: Balkanization. This happens because of the mountainous terrain, and maybe there is something in the water. I don't know. Regardless, this stress goes back as early as we can read, or to the Iron Age, when this same area, being generally attributed to the Illyrians, was, upon closer inspection, filled with a bunch of distinct peoples: Venetic, Liburian, Pannonian, Lapides, Histrian, some Celts even, and of course many different Illyrian tribes, all with a reputation for being fierce warriors. Now, don't get your hopes up. None of these folks is properly overlapping with the Cyclopean walls we have been visiting. Meaning, not only the Cyclopean hill forts are to be found in the narrow strip of land near the coast, whilst the Roman provinces of Pannonia and Illyria extend much further inland. The reverse is also true. The walls are covering more of the coast than any of these tribes ever controlled. Well, I blame the Romans for being too nice. See, of all other ancient empires, and new, no one else took the trouble to properly take note of the different peoples they were conquering. This includes, for example, the Europeans in the Americas, slapping the name Indians onto anyone that was not on the boat. But not the Romans. They were very considerate, brutally enslaving each culture they met only after some thorough ethnographic study. So much so, academics today refuse to look any further to the past and assume everything in Europe was built the year before the Romans arrived, by the peoples the Roman encountered in the area, thus causing this annoying standoff we keep on falling. The hill forts seem to form a tight border wall, but we cannot find who they were keeping out or in. Confused yet? Yep, that was to be expected. Because these things happened a long time ago, and everybody is now dead, and we keep listening to people that were not around at the time. However, if we ignore the experts' talk and check what the dead bodies have to say, we might finally get some answers. Like this. Remember that large city that was abandoned in the middle of the Bronze Age, Moncodonja? They had some dead bodies in there, parts of it, mostly skulls, in what could be evidence for a grim process known as excarnation, whereas the dead bodies are first exposed to the environment for decomposition and then some bones are moved into a ritual location. It is wicked, I know, and it would creep out everybody else, being those grossed out the invading Iron Age peoples, including the Illyrian, a bunch of tribes with a preference for inhumation, using tumuli or what we would now consider normal tombs, or the Istrian, Venetian, and Lapines, who were into cremation, barbecuing grandpa, an upcoming ritual that at the end of the Bronze Age spread like wildfire. So, what if the hill forts were built during the Bronze Age by a people practicing excarnation, and then they were replaced by incoming Illyrians and others, new peoples with new tumuli or cremation rituals? Yeah, that would be nice. But it is also a stretch, I have to admit, because nothing in the Balkans is ever so simple. And to this day, the mix of different cultures is complex, tense, and no border wall will keep them quiet. Here's the thing. The walls were built. There are hundreds of them, atop every other hill. But they were unable to keep anybody away. Since at least the end of the Bronze Age until today, the Balkans have been a messy patchwork of many different peoples, generally angry at one another. Funny enough, they all tend to claim precedent as being the original ones, the true locals, leading me to think that the hill forts, likewise all other Cyclopean walls, are not fit for defense, as no one of the original builders have survived. Fact is, despite building the best walls, the population of Cyclopean builders was replaced across Europe, and all we have left of them are some excarnated, scattered bones, a grim ritual that, with a bit of morbid curiosity, we will check next. That's it for today. Hope you liked it. Drop an eye in the comments.